I read Dear Writer, You Need to Quit. And this is a book written by a writing coach that is supposed to help writers, I guess, change their mindset about things and reframe how they look at certain aspects of their writing career. I ended up having fairly mixed feelings about this book, and I gave it a 3-star. So I do follow this author on their podcast or their YouTube channel. And I think part of maybe my frustration was that a lot of the stuff in the book was stuff that had already been kind of more or less done on their YouTube channel. So I didn't feel like I was getting a whole lot of new information. My other big concern about this book is just that I'm not entirely sure that the information is as useful without working with a writing coach as it seems to be. So the kind of takeaway from this book, or the whole point of this book, is the question the premise. And that is something that the author really drills in your head, which means if you think you're supposed to do something as a writer, or you want to do something, or you have a view about something, you should question if it's the right view, if it's the truth, if it's something you need to do. So for instance, if you are saying, okay, to have a writing career, I have to write a book a month. If you're saying that, but like struggling to do that, she would say, well, do you really have to do that? You know, what is going to happen if you don't write a book a month? Are there writers who still make a living writing less than a book a month? Could that be you? Could you stay at your day job and not write as many books? You really wants you to relook at things. And I do think that that is good advice. I just think that sometimes as writers, it can be really easy to not see the flaws in things or to see too many flaws. I also think that the author doesn't give people credit for being flexible and changeable. She does talk about how it's very hard to change habits, particularly when you are trying to change like big things or like systems. And I understand that, but I also just think that especially if you're a new writer coming into this book, you might actually feel more discouraged than helped. I think the author in this book is trying to give you permission to not push too hard and to take breaks and to do things to prevent burnout. But I wonder if sometimes she takes it too far and is more saying like, I just worry that people could get the wrong impression of I shouldn't try. Because even when I was done reading it, kind of felt a little bit like, maybe I shouldn't bother. Maybe I shouldn't work so hard. Maybe I shouldn't try so hard. But then I was like, no, this is meaningful for me. This is my dream. And so I'm going to keep pushing. And even if the thing she's saying is true, even if, maybe most people don't make a living as a full-time writer, guess what? I'm going to at least try. Um, you know, maybe most people can't write a book a month. Well, that doesn't mean I can't try to find productivity ways and tips that I can use that will make me closer to that goal. And maybe with time and practice, I can get to a goal close to that. So I think that without a writing coach, this could be very bad advice. To not have somebody with you to kind of measure it out and be like, okay, yes, in this case, I think you have unrealistic expectations or ideas about things, but also no, in this case, I think you could push yourself harder, or you could reframe things and do it this way, but also have you tried things? One thing, for instance, that the author talks about is, you may have been told that you need an outline. Well, do you really need an outline? If you've written without outlines before, you don't necessarily need an outline. Okay, but experiment with an outline and see if it makes you faster. And then if it doesn't and you don't like an outline, don't use it. If you're stuck on a project, try an outline. If it doesn't work, then don't use it. But every project is different and every story is different. And like sometimes, yeah, you may not need an outline for every story, but sometimes you might need it. It feels like it's so easy to be like, oh, well, this author says I should question the premise. I've written before without an outline. Outlines aren't the be all end all. Lots of people write without outlines, so I shouldn't outline. And I don't think that was the author's intention at all, but like I could see that as I was going through the book being like, oh, it would be so easy to say X, Y, and Z, even though X, Y, and Z isn't necessarily the truth or my truth. So I was a little bit bummed because, like I said, the question, the premise stuff is the main focus of this whole book. And while I think it has an important place and it has helped me and I learned this from watching her podcast, it has helped me like to reevaluate things. I think it would work better with a writing coach, and to do it by yourself, just with the help of this book, I have some hesitations about. Another thing that I think is worth noting is the author is very big into the Clifton strengths. And she really wants you to have an idea of what your strengths are while also acknowledging that like it costs money to get your Clifton strengths tested. And so maybe some of her readers haven't had their Clifton strengths tested, but if you have it, you're going to have a better idea about what works for you and what systems to put in place. Now, I do happen to have had my Clifton strengths tested. I took a test for work, but I don't necessarily understand how to apply that to my writing circumstances. And again, it was a situation where I was like, I bet this would be really helpful if I had a writing coach. But as an individual myself, I'm not sure how much use it was. And also, like, not everybody can take the Clifton strengths. So much about this book is knowing yourself and being able to really step back and look at things with a bigger, broader point of view. And I just think that that's not something that is easy to do without help. Maybe if you have a really good writer friend who can help you see the truth, maybe if you're working with a writing coach, this is something to bring into the coaching maybe. But I just don't know that this is super valuable on its own. It's also a fairly short book. It's less than 200 pages. And again, like the big thing, if you pick up this book, the main thing I think you'll probably come away with is question the premise. Question if what you're doing makes sense. Question if you have to do it. Question if other people can succeed without it. Question if, you've done things in the past that are different. And if so, did it work for you? And again, I think those are valid questions. And I think we should do what works for us. But I also think that there is value in trying new things. And the author is like, everybody wants the magic bullet. Everybody wants the thing that's going to suddenly skyrocket them to productivity and riches and all this. And she's like, there is no magic bullet. And I absolutely agree that that is probably true, that there is nothing that works universally for everybody. But the more you study and try things, the more that you, in my opinion, can incorporate new processes that might improve how you're doing things. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing for everybody, but I don't think there's anything wrong with going to productivity seminars. I don't think there's anything wrong with trying productivity tips and seeing if they help you, because I've tried some tips that did, and then I've tried some tips that didn't. But I don't feel like it's a bad thing to try to be more productive. Obviously, don't push yourself into burnout, but at the same time, like, we're all trying to write books here. And I think trying things, experimenting, learning processes, I just think that's valuable. And I feel like this book almost discourages that a little bit. And maybe that wasn't the author's intent, but like after reading it, I just kind of wanted to be like, my first instinct after reading this book is to just be like, I don't have to try anymore, because clearly everything is not going to work out. So many people don't work out, and it's all hard, and it's hard to push myself. And again, was that the author's intent? Probably not. Is that what I got from it? Unfortunately, maybe a little bit. I do think that if you are an advanced writer and you have a lot of help and people who are your support system, you could pick this book up and you might get some benefit from the reframing of things, the reframing of, here's what I've been trying to do. I'm feeling exhausted. I'm feeling burnout. I'm feeling stressed out. Maybe this book can help me kind of prioritize what's the most important things, to, give myself permission not to do everything under the sun. But I would say if you're a newer author, I would avoid this book just because I think it may discourage you too much from trying new things and from really learning who you are and what you're capable of. And I think experimentation is a great way of getting to know yourself. I do think she has some good things to say about like having systems in your world that work to help you be a better writer. But also, I've been writing for a really long time. I started writing probably in high school and then started publishing about 10 years ago. And like sometimes as a writer, I need one thing. Sometimes as a writer, I need another thing. And those things are constantly changing. And it's important to be self-aware of your needs. But I also, for me, find that it's important to keep trying and keep learning things and doing different things. And I just felt like this book was maybe too discouraging, that I wouldn't want to recommend it to other writers. I do have another book by this author that I am also going to read. And like I said, I'm not sad I read it, but also I think you can just get a lot from her podcast that is kind of the same stuff. I didn't feel like the book did anything that was super different than her podcast. So maybe if you want to see if this helps you with your mindset, go check out her podcast and see how you vibe with her message. I do like her podcast overall, but like I said, I felt like this book wasn't that different, wasn't that extra from what I've already gotten from her podcast on YouTube. And I also felt like it would have been more helpful to use the information with the help of a coach or a writing buddy who can really help you with some framing, because I think there's a lot of possibility of taking this stuff in the wrong way and actually maybe discouraging your progress a little. But that's just my opinion. If you've read this book, I would love to know what you thought of it. This has been Jane. Please like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.